Salutations! My name is Summer, and this is Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats. And I'm doing a tag today, and I was actually tagged. It's the reread book tag, and I was tagged by David Murphy, and that's his channel name. And I'll put it in the Sylvie. I'll put it in the description below. And the original tag was created by Rose or Roz, I'm not sure about her name, and Alf at Scallydandling, all about the books. I know that should come easier. They say it so fast, and I have trouble with it. But anyway, I'll put it in the description below since I was so horrible about pronouncing it. Okay, so Sylvie is wanting to play now with her thing now that I'm doing this. So if you hear that noise, blame Sylvie. Mayfair is being all quiet. She's being like all sweet. Randall's being all sweet. Anyway. All right, so number 1. Where do you stand on the rereading scale? From almost never to all the time. And I'm in the middle. I wish I reread more books. I looked at my my paperwork, and I reread 5 books a year, and I guess it's because I feel like I don't have time to reread. But I was watching Katie. I can't think of what her channel name is. And anyway, she said, how do you know it's still a favorite if you haven't reread it? And she was talking about how she rereads all the time. So, or she's reread a lot of books. So, yeah, I wish I reread more. 2, has that changed over your reading life? Maybe I reread more when I was younger because we lived in the country, and so it's not like I could walk to the library. So maybe I reread more when I was younger because I have more access to books now than I did back then. 3, when do you reread? Soon, years later, when the mood strikes. I'm a mood reader, so I don't think I've ever reread a book right after I've read it. So, why do you reread? Pleasure, I love, if there's a book that I love, I want to reread it. Every time you read a book, you get more information from it. There's little subtle things that now that you know the story, you can pick up on, where before you're just trying to figure out what's going on and learning the characters. But once you have that down, you can just get so much more when you reread. Yeah, so like this book, Seeds of Hope by Jane Goodall, I want to reread this because it was so packed full of information, and it's just so good. Let's see here. How do you reread? Fast, slow, or best bits? I don't think I read faster the second time I read it, or the third time. I think I'm a pretty slow reader, so I don't think I read any faster. But there is one book, and I read the whole thing through. When it comes to rereading, I'm trying to get the whole experience again in a new light. But there is one exception to this. So, my friend Jane sent me this book. It was a different edition because I gave the edition that she sent me to a friend. But Drawing in the Dust by Zoe Klein. I've read this twice. But in the beginning of each chapter, there is this it'll say something gorgeous. I'm just part of this story, and it's just beautiful. And it'll say, after after that, it'll say the scroll of Anatia, and then it has like a, like it's a Bible verse. Well, my friend knew how much I love that, and so Christmas a couple years ago, he bought me the Scroll of Anatia by Zoe Klein, and this has those the little bit that was in front of the chapter. She made a book about it afterwards, and this book I have marked up, and so I'll go back and I'll reread the things that I underlined because, well, and this is like a whole, I had actually marked this whole page up that I wanted to go back. So this one I actually go back kind of like it's poetry, where you go in and you have marked ones that you love and you go back and you read those. So this is my one exception of where I go back and read bits of it. Let's see. Who or what do you reread? What authors, genres, or individual books? So, so much. I'm trying not to make this be a long video, but when I get off work and my brain's kind of scattered and I want to share so much with you guys. Oh, there is the accidental reread. Right now I'm reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. And I had forgot. I wasn't for sure if I had read this or not, and I have, and I'm rereading it and I'm laughing and it's so funny. And then there's the so I thought I knew Frederick Bachman was coming out with another book. I thought it was going to be the end of the trilogy. I thought Beartown was going to be a trilogy. So I reread this last year. No, I reread this the beginning of this year. It feels like last year. I love all of his books. And I want to show you guys this because this is something that I absolutely find fascinating. The Scandal and Beartown are the exact same book. I like Book Depository, and so there's UK editions. Well, somehow I managed to get The Scandal, which is Beartown, before it was Beartown. So I just think that's super cool to have the same book. And I have so Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I have something cross stitch. I wish I had it on me so that I could show it to you guys. But yeah, Outlander was originally called something cross stitch, and I have that edition too. So I love that. Okay, so who else? Someone I always go back to, Barbara Kingsolver, Prodigal Summer. I've read many times. I keep wanting to say last year. Earlier this year, I reread Flight Behavior by her. And I'm hoping to fit in Animal Dreams, which I have not read yet, this month. I'm hoping. If not, maybe I can get to it in September. I've reread Hatchet many a times. It's, the whole series is wonderful. Living the Quaker Way by Philip Gulley. He is one of my favorite Quaker writers, and this is a nice, simple book. And then at the end of it, he has Quaker Queries, which are just meditations, things, positive things that you can work on to, better yourself. Be patient, Anyway, let's see. Game of Thrones. I have reread this 3 times, maybe, and the whole series. And when the next book comes out, as soon as I hear it's coming out, I'm going to reread all of them again to get prepared for the next one. And I think the rest of these are for another one that I have reread a couple times, and that's Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. I've reread this a couple times. This is a winter read, and I want to read this again. I'm feeling like I want to read it again. But here, it's, you know, when you have so many books that you want to read, that you want to experience, it's hard to stop and say, no, it's okay not knowing what happens in this book because I want to experience this book again. Is there a book you found better when you reread it? I would say almost every book. If I love a book and I reread it, I'm just finding more and more that I love about it. Which, wait, and one that was worse. So I can't say that there was one that was worse, but I can say one that I outgrew. As a kid, I still like Judy Blume, but as a kid, I loved Judy Blume, and I read this book just as long as we're together. I read this book over and over and over again, and I read it again a couple years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that's cute, but I didn't get what I, of course, got from it as a kid. So that's one. But was anybody else a huge Judy Blume fan growing up? Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Blubber, otherwise known as Sheila the Great, Super Fudge, Tales of the Fourth Grade, Nothing, Then Again, Maybe I Won't, Freckle Juice. Her adult books are very adult. When I first read an adult book, I was thinking, whoa, because I was so used to her children's books. And she can relate to children so, I mean, I'm curious if a kid now read these, how they would feel about it, if it has aged well. Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. I wonder if my nieces read these. I'll have to ask. But yeah, let me know if you were a huge Judy Blume fan or if there was some other, most people have read like Dr. Seuss and Beverly Cleary and, but Judy Blume was my all-time favorite. Which book have you reread the most times? Oh, it's a simple, easy book, but I love it and I get something from it every time I read it. The Five People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And I got the second one, the second person you meet. I think it's called The Second Person You Meet in Heaven. I have it in the other room. But yeah, this book. Oh, this one's actually clean. But I have reread this book maybe 6 times. And every time I read it, I mark it up. But here's the problem. I underline all these things I love, and then I give it to somebody. And this is a clean copy, so it must be a new. Yeah, I got it in 2017, so it's a new one. It's not all marked up, and I might have another copy of it because if I love a book, I have a couple copies to give to people. Another book that I read a lot of, but I've only read it maybe 3 times, and that's Persuasion by Jane Austen. I have reread every year. I read Jane Austen, so I didn't do well. Jane Austen July. I didn't read anything really besides I'm still reading that biography, Jane Austen at Home by uh, Lucy Worsley. I'm still reading that. So. One I'm rereading right now is The Tale of the Body Thief by Anne Rice. This is her Vampire Chronicles. I read them when I was about 14 years old, and so this year I wanted to reread hers to see, well, all of them. I like her. I read The Mummy earlier this year, and I read The Wolf Gift last month, I think. And so yeah, now I'm back to this is the 4th book in the Vampire Chronicles. And it was interesting because the book before this, The Queen of the Damned, there was a lot of feminist stuff in there that I did not get when I was 14. But man, I got it. I got it this year. Okay, I think I've talked about. Oh no, here's another one. Yeah, I reread this book too. I love Charles Fraser. I've read everything by him. I've reread Cold Mountain. I don't know if I've reread 13 Moons or not, but I've read all of his books, and he does not have that many. He only has maybe 5 books out, but the quality, it's all about quality, not quantity. So, and then, oh, okay, so I want to talk about some books I want to reread. And I talked about this one before. I want to reread Sacagawea or Sacagawea by Anne Lee Waldo. I read this in 98, so I was 19, I think. I want to reread this because, like Katie, from Books and Things, I remember she said, how do you know it's a favorite or still a favorite that you still love it if you haven't reread it in that long of a time? So, yeah. I want to reread Fall of the Giants trilogy, Ken Follett, which right now I'm reading The Pillars of the Earth. I'm guessing it's a series because the prequel of The Pillars of the Earth is coming out next month. I pre-ordered it. But The Fall of the Giants, this trilogy, I absolutely love because I think Americans, our biggest problem, well, we have issues, but one of our biggest issues are always thinking that we're the good guys and that the other people are bad guys, instead of saying we're all people and we all pretty much want the same things. We want our families to be safe, our loved ones. We want to be healthy, happy, comfortable. We all pretty much want the same things. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in you're from here, or you're from there, or these imaginary borderlines that have been created by men. Sorry, men. You guys do great things too. But this book talks about, it has different perspectives. It has the American perspective. It has a British family. It has a German family, and it has a Russian family. So you get to know all those perspectives. And the second or third book, they throw Cuba in there too, because you're going on with whatever war is going on, so that way you can see what is going on in these other countries with these other families and their struggles and what they want and what they're dealing with. So this series, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so detailed. So this is one that I could read over and over again. I just have to make the time for it. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. I mispronounced that last name. I read this, I want to say last year or the year before, and I really enjoyed it, but I can't really remember it. I remember the opening scene where there's 2 men sitting on a park bench and they're discussing, I forget what they're discussing. But then this gentleman comes up and says he's the devil, and they just are kind of looking at him like he's crazy. And I remember that there was a cat that talked, and I want to say it was kind of like a bad guy cat. Anyway, so it was very strange. I don't really remember it, so I need to reread it. My all-time favorite book, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I need to reread this. I started to reread it a while back and I got distracted by other books. But this book, I thought it was so beautiful from the very beginning, where he's talking about dust, that dust is in everything. How he describes it makes me feel it. I don't think I've ever read a book that was as beautiful as this book when it comes about like humanity and how we treat each other. And there's a part, and if you've read this, there's a part where they end up going to a barn, and something happens in this barn where the daughter helps somebody, Oh my gosh, what she gives. It was just, I was just blown away. So yeah, my mom did not like this book because she said it was depressing. So it took me a long time to read it. I just kept not reading it, thinking it was going to be depressing. But then she likes Gone with the Wind. So and she liked Wuthering Heights when she was younger, and I do not like that book at all. So there are certain books that I love that she doesn't, and vice versa. But this is one that I just absolutely love. It is my favorite book. Another book I want to read is Needful Things by Stephen King. I want to say this is one of my favorites, but it's been so, and look at this beautiful edition. This is those hotter HODDER editions. Yeah, they're UK editions. Anyway, I want to reread this because I remember yeah, there's so much I remember. But then I watched the movie and I'm thinking, am I remembering that from the movie or from the book? Because it replays in my head sometimes like it's a, when I read, sometimes I see it like it's a movie and then I'll think, oh, and I get confused with if it's the book or the movie. So I want to reread that because I do love Stephen King. And I want to reread Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy and have this beautiful vintage edition. Yeah, I love this, but there's so much that goes on. There's so much that happens in this story. And I bet there's all these subtle details that I missed the first way through. So I want to reread it. But I'm not going to reread it right now because I'm reading next month. I'm going to try to conquer War and Peace. So I'll be reading his other book. Anyway, thank you so much for tagging me, and I will put their names in the description below. And if you are watching this, you are tagged, and I'd love to know where you stand on rereads, if you like to reread or if you don't at all. I really feel like if you don't at all, that you're missing out, because if you love a book, you can find like so much more. You find so much more in a book the second or third time through. So anyway, just keep that in mind if you're a person that doesn't like to reread. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.